Hello, please join me in this video where we are going to talk about alkanes and the methods of naming alkanes. Now, alkanes are fully saturated hydrocarbons, meaning they do not contain double bonds or triple bonds. When it comes to naming, we use the suffix "-ene". The other portion of the name is derived from the number of carbon atoms that make up the structure. If there's one carbon atom, we use meth and then the suffix "-ene", so the name becomes methane. If there are two carbon atoms, we use eth, so the name becomes ethane. 3 carbon atoms, the name becomes propane. 4 carbon atoms, we use bute, so the name becomes butane. From 5 all the way to 10, we name them in a similar fashion to that of polygons. A 5-sided polygon is called a pentagon. So here we're going to use pentane, hexane, heptane, octane, nonane, and decane. The other thing I want you to recognize is the labeling of the carbon as being primary, secondary, tertiary, or quaternary. Now, let us consider something like propane, where we can call this carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3. Carbon 1 is only connected to carbon 2, so we can label that as being a primary carbon. Carbon 2 is connected to 1 and 3, so we can label that as secondary carbon. Carbon 3 is only connected to carbon 2, so we can label this as primary carbon. If a carbon is connected to 3 other carbon atoms, we label that as tertiary carbon. If a carbon is connected to 4 other carbon atoms, we can label it as quaternary carbon. So I want you to be able to recognize the structures when you see them in the molecules we will be drawing. What are the systematic rules followed in the naming of alkanes? Now, the rules that we are going to use are governed by International Union of Physical and Applied Chemistry. So for all the organic chemistry molecules that we are going to name, we are going to be referring to this often. Let us have an example so I can demonstrate to you guys how we need to follow the protocol. Let us have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we could have 1 carbon atom there. We could have 3 attached in that format. We could have 2 carbon atoms attached that way, and we could have another 1 carbon atom here. The first thing we need to do is to recognize the longest chain. So our longest chain has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 carbon atoms, so that's going to be octane. Now we are going to call that the parent chain. And the parent chain is going to have the last name. So it's going to be the last name of the compound. Then the other ones are going to be branches or substituents. So the substituents, we are going to give them specific names. If the substituent has 1 carbon, we are going to call it methyl from methane. So we're going to call that a methyl group. So there's another methyl group over here. Then we have 2 carbon atoms, so this is going to be ethyl group. If there was 3 carbon atoms, we'll call it a propyl group. Butyl group for 4 carbon atoms in that format. However, if the arrangement is in this format for 3 carbon atom, we call it isobutyl isopropyl. So once we identify the groups, then we need to label the carbon atoms in our longest chain. While labeling, we need to make sure that the branches are assigned the lowest numerical values. So we can either label from left to right or from right to left, whichever is going to give us the lowest numerical values for the substituents. In this case, labeling from the left to the right is convenient because the first substituent is in position 2. 2 is going to be a lower value than when we started from the right to the left. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we have a methyl group in position 2, so we are going to call it 2-methyl. And in position 4, we have 4-isopropyl. Position 6, position 5, we have an ethyl group. Position 6, we have methyl group. And now we need to combine them so we can have the full name of this compound. So what we are going to do is we need to consider the alphabets. So the first letter of the alphabet in the name, we are going to do them alphabetically. So in this case, E comes before M. But again, the other thing we recognize, we have 2 methyl groups. So we are going to call that 2,6-dimethyl because we have 2 of them. The terms di, tri, tetra, we never include them when considering the alphabetical order in putting down the name. So we are going to consider M, we're going to consider E, we're going to consider I. So isopropyl is usually used as part of the name. You need to recognize that too. So we are going to start with ethyl, so 5-ethyl, and then 4-isopropyl, and then we have 2,6-dimethyl octane. That gives us the full name of the compound. Now what you need to do here is to make sure you have the name of the parent chain and then the substituents. Once you have that, you can easily put them together. Another example we can consider is, what if we have a cyclic compound? Now this is going to be called cyclohexane. If you have a 5-membered ring, we're going to call that a cyclopentane. Sometimes you might have a substituent on the ring. For example, in this case, a methyl group. Then we are going to call that methyl cyclohexane. Now here recognize that we do not have to put 1 because when there's a substituent in a ring, obviously we assume it is from position 1, so we do not have to say 1-methyl cyclohexane. The other thing I would want to include here is, in the naming, we could also have other substituents. So let us use like 1, 2, 3. We could have bromine here. We could have an ethyl group. We could have another bromine here. We could have chlorine in that position. So when we have these other groups attached, in this case it forms an alkyl halide. we still use the same naming system. So we are going to label them and find the longest chain. And we need to make sure that the substituents are going to have the lowest numerical values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is nonane. And then we have at position 2 and 6, we have 2,6-dibromo. And then at position 4, we have ethyl. Then at position 7, we have chloro. So the full name becomes 2,6-dibromo, because B comes first, and then followed by C, and then E. So 2,6-dibromo, 7 chloro, 4 ethyl nonane. So this becomes the full name of the compound. Well, so what I want you to do is to practice, and if you do have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a good one, and thank you for watching.